Hi, welcome to BA Brew. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Adrian.
I'm Debbie.
I'm Mike.
Excellent. So today's podcast is going to be focused on the question of is there a future to business analysis? Is there a future to business analysis? So to start us off, Mike, what are your thoughts to this particular question?
Well, this could be the world's shortest podcast because I could just say no, couldn't I? Or I could say yes, and we'll just end it there. I could say no. I hope so. Otherwise, we're going to look pretty silly, aren't we? Because we've invested a lot of our own sort of personal capital in business analysis. I think for me, the consideration is: are we talking about the role? Are we talking about that job title, or are we talking about the skill set, that the activities we're doing? The job title, there's all sorts of things happening with job titles at the moment. Who knows whether we'll be known as business analyst or some other amazing name in the future. But there's definitely a requirement for that skill set, business analysis. I think that I would be surprised if suddenly we didn't need business analysis in some form. What does anybody else think about that?
I agree. I think that business analysis is needed more than ever, or as much or more than it ever has been. I think if you look at the need for organizations to adapt, well, actually, we're living through a pandemic. And the need for organizational agility is not going to go away. But I agree. I actually don't personally think we need to be that invested in the job title of business analyst. But what I do think we need to be invested in is the integrity of the skill set, and also to look for interesting intersections with other disciplines, because there are lots of really interesting areas for collaborations with other skill sets. And I think much as sometimes we as BAs criticise our business colleagues for being siloed, actually, if we put a mirror up to ourselves, we can sometimes be a bit, we're BAs and they're something else, and let's draw a line between us. And actually, I think those lines are entirely arbitrary.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think we're very siloed, and I think it's such a shame, because actually we should all be aiming to achieve the same thing, which is helping organizations to respond, develop, extend, all those types of good things, and heading to that sort of outcome. But there does seem to be this well, it's two things really. It's sort of, I'm in my group and I'm not in your group. And it's also, you're trying to grab land from my group, get back to your group, and all those types of things. And they're just not helpful because they take the focus off the outcome. And the focus should be on the outcome.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were speaking there, Debbie, I was thinking there's something more generally about groups of individuals defining who they are by what they're not. So I think sometimes what we do as BAs, we say, well, it's really hard to define what we are. So we know we're not that, and we're not that. Yeah, I didn't want to say it right, and I don't think we are. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because that could create out groups, which then creates or reinforces those silos. Potentially.
I'm going to throw in my 2 pennies worth then. So
go on then, Jonathan.
I've got to, haven't I? So is there a future for business analysis? I think there's a few things I want to kind of unpack on that question. So is there a future for business? Yes, organizations are going to exist. Is there a need for people to do analysis more so than ever? And I agree, Adrian, on the complexity, the challenges. And what is analysis? Well, it's people that are thinking about outcomes and thinking about how we achieve those outcomes. And I think that's more needed now than ever, given the regulatory, the customer experience and the technology demands that we've got in our organizations. There's also something I wanted to raise here, that the fact that we're asking this question, and we'd agreed it as a discussion topic, I think tells you a lot about our profession, because I think that we are a profession that is still relatively, we've matured a great deal over the last kind of 10, 20 years, but we're still relatively immature. And I think this discussion around the land grab and the discussion around the roles I think we feel somewhat threatened by some of these other roles.
Yeah.
And I would like to see a more confident and professional approach to business analysis. And I would like for there never to be again a podcast asking the question, is there a future for business analysis? I'd like us to be confident as a profession and know that we do contribute, we offer value to our customers.
Yeah, and I think confidence is key, because it's not just the other disciplines that emerge periodically in our industry. It's also the new approaches, the new, dare I say, shiny toy. It's that thing that somewhere along the line there is going to be the holy grail of business change, and we must all know about it, you know. And actually, I think sometimes because we lack confidence as a profession, maybe because, you know, we've suffered from lack of recognition and all those good things, maybe then we don't actually take time to think that doesn't actually have to work in that way. How do we make sure it works given all of our knowledge and expertise? But we don't seem to do that. A lot of the time we seem to accept what other people tell us. And we're the challenging problem solvers.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that phrase, challenging problem solvers, actually has two meanings in a way, doesn't it? It's problem solvers that challenge, and also it's problem solvers that are that people find challenging. And there's probably an element of both. Yeah. But one thing I remember hearing someone say about, 15 years ago now, is it feels like they were admittedly very frustrated, but they were like, it feels like the business analysis community's reached its awkward teenage years. Everyone's like, nobody understands me, and people won't take me seriously. And in many ways, nothing's changed. You know, we sit around as a community sometimes and say, it's awful that execs don't understand what, you know, why to engage us early. Well, that's on us. You know, I mean, I'm sorry to be harsh, but it really is on us as a community, and it's on, you know, the associations that represent us. And it's on the sort of thought leaders, whatever that means in the area. So I do think that confidence is really, really key. And I think as individual practitioners, credibility comes through actually delivering stuff that people find valuable. Yeah. So we need to think about applying analysis inside our own practice to say, well, hang on a minute, you know, there's a pestle for our analysis practice. And I think the more we think like consultants and think about managing reputation as a community, I think the better. And I know that, you know, there'll be certain perceptions of consultancy there, but what I mean is the fact that a consultant isn't guaranteed their next gig, right? You know, there's got to be someone doing pre-sales. If you're a BA in an organization, often that work comes down a pipeline, but it's only coming down a pipeline because you're a tick on the governance box sometimes. Now, I know that's not always the case. I'm being provocative.
No.
We're allowed to be, Adrian, don't worry. We've got things to learn, though, haven't we, from other professional disciplines like consultancy, and I know there's an overlap. But I'd pick up on the point that you made with regard to collaboration, and I know it's come up already, but collaborating with customer experience designers or UX designers, collaborating with product owners and product managers and product directors, and working with others so that we are offering value in a confident professional way backed up by a skill set. I'd really like us not to be hung up on the job role, though, because I think business analysis is happening irrespective of whether or not the person is aware of us as a professional discipline. If they're thinking about business outcomes, solving problems, there's possibly someone that's performing business analysis.
But you unpicked it earlier, Jonathan, when you said business analysis has got two terms, business and analysis.
Yeah.
I still feel that somewhere along the line, sometimes the analysis bit gets a little bit lost. Yet I see so many situations where analysis would have been incredibly beneficial. And so I think there's always going to be a future for analysis, always, because things need analysing. But I think in terms of business analysis, we do have to be really careful. And I actually agree with both of you that a more sort of outward looking, maybe not taking for granted that we can just do business analysis, and actually thinking about our external customers at all sorts of different levels might help. Somebody who used to work with me, who I'm not going to name, said to me about 10 years ago, business analysis seems to operate within an echo chamber. And I said, how dare you? How dare you say that? And then I thought about it and I thought, oh dear, I've got this awful feeling that maybe he's right.
And we've got to start looking externally and asking our counterparts for feedback, even if that feedback isn't easy for us to listen to. Asking our product owners that we work with, asking our designers and architects, asking our business sponsors, what do you make of the service offer that I've made for you on the assignment I've done? What would you suggest in terms of improvement for the future? If we do that on an individual basis and we collectively share that, we're not operating in that echo chamber. We're being proactive and we're taking this profession forward in a positive way.
I think there's a few themes from that really that resonate with me. One, that idea of, as change professionals, we need to accept and embrace change within our teams as well, because whilst the business is changing, we ought to be adapting the ways that we're working. So we need to look at what changes people want, and also build in continuous improvement. We're talking about continuous improvement and how when we put systems in, we want those systems to be learning systems and picking up the problems and resolving those problems. We ought to be doing that as well. So we need to be engaging with the people we're collaborating with and helping them as well, helping them work more effectively with us and working more effectively with them. And one of the things that's inevitably happening across business is things are getting more and more complex. The rate of change of business and the new tools that are coming in, the new capabilities, just make things so much more complex. And we've got to adapt the way we work to deal with that complexity. So there'll be all kinds of new things that help us spot patterns and spot ways of working that we're going to need to adjust to. I think we all need to sort of take a view that as business analysts, we should demonstrate that we can embrace the change and go with the change and be sort of real sort of examples of living the change and showing that we're ready for it, and people can learn from that.
100% agree. I think springboarding from that, and something that Jonathan and Debbie said around thinking and analysis, and I suppose we could include the need for critical thinking and for analysis to be systematic but also systemic. So yes, there can be a repeatable process, but actually in complexity, sometimes things are just so, suddenly COVID happens, and actually that's a different context to be responding to. And one thing that I didn't really see happen is I didn't see think about our skills as BAs, and I know that there were BAs who were furloughed or there was a period where people were being laid off, and there didn't seem to be a movement of BAs saying, how can we help in this situation? And that surprised me, because we're normally and I'm just as guilty as anyone, but it felt like there was the lack of a community. There wasn't nobody stood up to coordinate it. If someone had stood up to coordinate and had said, look, we've got people who are being furloughed from companies over here, and we've got charities over here who are doing stuff with COVID. Well, hang on a minute. There are people on 80% of their pay who might be prepared to do some voluntary work, and so I think that there's one thing that I hope we see in the future of business analysis is the use of business analysis for societal good, not just through the role, because I think we can do it in our role, but also in us. We should be asking senior people who are in the senior end of the BA, what have you done outside of your role to use your skills to make society better? And perhaps I'm being aspirational, but if someone is a senior BA, a qualified senior BA, really I think they ought to be, in my opinion, giving back, not just taking the paycheck and going home and and thank you very much.
I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit there, Adrian, but I do know of lots of BAs that have worked exceptionally hard to help with organisational issues, to solve problems, in their organisations. I don't think you were dismissing.
No. I mean, I was absolutely not dismissing the hard work that anyone's done.
As a community, I don't think we pulled together. We did work individually in all our organisations, but as a community, I don't think we had a community response. Not that I was aware of anyway. But I agree on the societal impact. And one of the things that I think we should be thinking about is environmental impact of the solutions that we are putting in. I don't know, I think it's quite rare that in a business case, environment would come up as an area of risk or impact, and potentially an area of cost as well. What's the environmental cost of this new solution? And I think we need to do that going forward. And I think ethical considerations as well need to form part of our analysis work.
Interesting, though, that this is such an interesting discussion, guys, because I'm sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was a community body that actually tried to address some of the issues you've just raised? Because actually, what you've just said has articulated something that I've really been worried about for a while, actually, because I think, where's the body that's standing up for business analysis, but also really pulling some of those things together? Because you're absolutely right, Adrian. People were furloughed and people were made redundant, and organisations were really struggling to manage the commercials, whether they were non-profit or commercial organisations, and there could have been something there, you know? And I think that we are lacking, and we're not the only profession that's lacking this, but it happens to be our profession we're talking about. We are lacking a body that really stands up for the importance of business analysis. And can I give you another example? Because this really, hang on, I'm going to go into rant mode. I get right, calm down, no rant. But I was reading a book earlier today where yet again there was a paragraph that mentioned business and systems analysts as if they were the same thing, and then talked about our poor practice. So we were dismissed. Okay, that must be the third book I've read that has a paragraph that dismisses us in some ways, you know, whether it's talking about business analysts need to get rid of their poor practice to move into an agile world, which is one book that I saw, to another book, that's the one today, that talked about business and systems analysts and how much poor analytical practice the writer had seen. And I just think, where's the body that really is pulling together all of these different aspects, that's actually saying business analysis has so much to offer, and here are the things. In times of crisis, can we do something to pull together as a community? And if we need to instill confidence in business analysts, let's call out these authors, because, you know, none of us write books where we say, oh, developers, what are they like? Or is it just me?
I've got an idea for a book, Debbie.
Yeah.
Idea for a flipping mission.
but it is interesting, isn't it? And I do think that, I mean, I wonder whether the long-term sustainability of centralised coordinating bodies to do that. I wonder whether organisations that have traditionally, perhaps in the past, fulfilled that role, you know, because it's so easy to be decentralized. You can have a bunch of people that care. You can have the membership, you know, actually really calling the shots. And it is amazing the impact an individual with, you know, an individual with the right inclination can have. Yeah. Because, you know, it's not, we have the most democratized ability to publish that we have ever had in history. Now that creates a problem for curation, but actually, you don't have to go to a publisher, you don't have to go to a printing press, and I think that any one of us can do. We can. Any one of us can start that revolution. Yeah. But it's choosing to do it and choosing the mission. But I do think someone will. I think
someone has to, because I think if business analysis is going to have a future, somebody's got to start saying these things, because, we talk about lack of recognition, and there are all sorts of reasons behind that maybe, but I don't like the fact that there seems to be side swipes at business analysis so often, and I don't see it being called out. So maybe next time I read it in a book, maybe I will post something about it and say, comments on this, please, because I think it's unacceptable.
I think you should have like a video blog segment, this is how Debbie sees it,
Debbie
Because
says.
Privacy corner.
in any profession, though, there is desirable and undesirable practice, and I would say that exists in our own profession. So we've got some poor practice in our profession, and I think we as a profession need to look at that. What are we doing about it, rather than some other professionals maybe criticizing us? Well, we need to be proactive in looking at, well, why is it that someone is demonstrating poor practice, and what are we doing about that? And that's I haven't got the answer to that one, but we've got to start dealing with that ourselves, I think.
Sorry, Adrian, but I do think that you can't dismiss a whole profession in a sentence.
No.
There's plenty of practice in business analysis.
This is going to seem like such a wrong thing to say, but maybe they need to do some analysis on the facts that they're using to come to those conclusions. I suspect that it might not be borne out by the science, and we should be following the science on this, shouldn't we, rather than making some side swipes like that.
And there lies another challenge, doesn't it? Is that there's no real, there's a lack of credible statistics around projects and change anywhere. And whenever you see a such and such % of projects fail, ask the person the source, because a lot of people will say a percentage and there is no source. And there's a really fun blog somewhere, I can't remember who wrote it, but they essentially tried to find the source of an often cited statistic, and you can follow all the citations back and there's nothing, like literally there's nothing. Or people quote from a 20-year-old version of the Chaos Report because that's the one that's in the public domain. And it's like, really? Are we really, as a profession, relying on 20-year-old statistics? So again, that's another thing that as a distributed community, it oughtn't be too hard to all contribute statistics anonymously to some centralized pool. I know IIBA UK chapter has an annual or biannual survey, when that's a really positive thing, huge amount of coordination, but it does get some interesting stats. If that was, if there were ways of extending that sort of capture to capture project stats, I think that, or not even product initiative stats, I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. So,
does business analysis have a future, Jonathan? Tell us the answer.
I wish I could sum it up. No, I can't. Not capable. Does it have a future? I think yes, absolutely, of course, but it's got to be different. It's got to be different. If we look back at what we've achieved in the last 20, 30 years as a profession, I would like us to achieve more. I want to be part of a profession that is confident, credible, recognized, and is not just seen and perceived to offer and deliver value, but really does it as well on the ground. And maybe I'd said that to wind you up, Debbie, I'm not sure. But
it went past me.
But I was stunned you said that, Jonathan. Stunned. I thought, you can't possibly suggest that again.
But I think we've got a bright future ahead, but we've got to make that change ourselves, as professional BAs ourselves. So I think this is the point where I say, is that a wrap then, guys? I think we're almost there. I just want to say thanks for joining us on today's podcast. If you'd like to send us any comments, emails, ideas for future episodes, please do contact us on babrew@AssistKD.com. And then I just wanted to ask, Adrian, are there any ways that people can keep in contact with you?
Yeah, certainly. Connecting on LinkedIn, if I'm Adrian Reed, REED, And I also run a series of webinars, live streams, and if you go to blackmetric.com/events, you'll see all the stuff we have coming up. So good place to bookmark and keep an eye on.
Awesome. And just in case anyone's not aware, Adrian, I believe you've got a podcast as well. Is it called On the Spot?
So LinkedIn live show On the Spot, a monthly live stream called BA Fringe, and various other webinars and stuff as well. So not a podcast, but various other live stream stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. That ends our episode on the BA Brew.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's it. That's the end of season 1. We've had loads of fun putting together the episodes and the content. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to pull the podcast together, and I really do appreciate every single email and idea that we've received so far. Please do keep these coming through. The email address is babrew@AssistKD.com. We'll be returning on Friday the 7th of May, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.